Hello everyone, welcome to my first extemporaneous video, and today I want to talk about the 2018 midterms, as in the US election that's coming up tomorrow. So a lot of people on the left see voting as a mainly frivolous, pointless act, and that it's just kind of a pointless maneuver. But I think that there is something very misguided about this. Now, normally this critique will rest upon 2 points. One is that the radical right is fundamentally, unstoppable under a capitalist system, and that the only way to stop the radical right is a militant overthrow of capitalism. And that basically the liberals, like the Democratic Party, do not offer a real alternative to the Republicans and the fascism which is, slowly encroaching inside the party. And I do agree that the Democratic Party is, a mire of corruption. It's a very bad party. It's very neoliberal. Often it runs candidates which are strong supporters of repressive immigration policies that are, homophobic, that do not stand up for the rights of women. And in general, it's a party that needs to clean up its act. However, the Democratic Party right now is not proposing concentration camps. It's not purging hundreds of thousands of voters off of voter rolls in Georgia, and voters which are primarily black people. And in North Dakota, it's not purging 50,000 Native people from the voter rolls as well. The Democratic Party is not currently engaged upon increasing, the wars of imperialism, which Trump has ramped up ever, more and more and more as his administration has gone on. The Democratic Party is not engaged upon, pushing for these awful deregulatory policies, which are leading America, towards another recession. The Democratic Party is not in any way, shape, or form as dangerous as the demagoguery and the racism of Donald Trump. And I think that in areas where there's just, we're say like a centrist, like say there's a really close race, I think, leftists should vote for the Democratic Party. One benefit of voting for the Democratic Party is that it will help establish us as a voice within it. Now, I don't believe, I'm not under any delusion, the Democratic Party is going to become a bastion for radical leftism. Fundamentally, I think that the overthrow must come from the outside. However, I still think that if we represent a core demographic, which the Democrats have to appeal to, if we give ourselves a voice, then politicians will adapt in a similar way to how the Democratic Party was forced to adapt to the gay rights movement, to black civil rights, and other things. Politicians and representatives are responsible to pressure from below. Now, I don't think that they will solve all the problems, but they can at least help save a few people's lives. Like they'll preserve the Affordable Care Act, for instance, and hopefully eventually we can get them to a point where they'll extend universal health care coverage. And I think another crucial thing is that, many people have the privilege to vote. I don't think a lot of people realize what a privilege voting is. There's so many countries in the world where you are not able to vote, and there's so many places in America where you are denied the ability to vote based on, some arbitrary felony, like doing a bit of, using, just a bit of drug use. There's nothing wrong with that. You're hurting no one by using drugs, and yet you are deprived of your voice in the electoral system in America. And, there's other tactics of voter suppression, really strict electoral laws, voter IDs, and a lot of this purging of people from the voter rolls is another attempt at voter suppression, and it's another counter-democratic tendency. But anyway, to go back to addressing, the militant critique, the only way that capitalism will fall is from violence abroad. Yes, that's true. But in order to, get support, we need people to be alive. And I think that's what we're not realizing here, is that Donald Trump's policies will kill vulnerable people. This will kill the base, the bedrock of our revolution. And any sort of romantic notion of some sort of accelerationism, it's not just going to cut it, because you're going to kill tens of thousands, if not millions of people. And these people are the ones who would be supporting left-wing beliefs, but are killed by the oppression, the oppressive circumstances they're forced to endure, because in part due to the policies of the Trump administration. And I think that there's just something so foolish in the idea that that it doesn't matter who we vote for, that it doesn't matter who's in charge. Clearly, the Democratic Party is better on certain issues. Under Obama, we did not see this massive crackdown on trans rights. In fact, a lot of trans rights were passed under Obama. A lot of regulations were passed under Obama on things like the environment. That's being completely destroyed under Donald Trump. We need rapid action on climate change. And although the Democratic Party is not yet able to do it, at least it will be able to preserve some of the accomplishments and perhaps expand some of the environmental regulations that are needed in order to avert disaster. And lastly, I kind of want to address why I think it's so important that we vote Democrat. And I think the main reason is this study I looked at, where it showed that people do not actually become, contrary to popular belief, people do not become more conservative as they age. Actually, it's that poorer people die as they become older, and thus the older demographics reflect, more right-wing, more privileged people. We're supposed to be fighting for these people, and yet I see a lot of kind of ivory tower reactions, oh no, it doesn't matter who wins or who loses, I'm so pure by not voting, I'm so wonderful, and it's just, I think that voting doesn't really, at the end of the day, voting is not really, abstaining from voting is not a very powerful statement. It's more powerful to make yourself heard in the electoral process. If you want a left-wing third party, great, I want that too. The Democratic Party is quite bad. If it cannot be reformed, sure, I agree, it should be scrapped. So vote, so work and create electoral alliances. Work to create a better third party, whether that be the Green Party or, Peace and Justice Party. There's all sorts of ways that we can make these left-wing third parties happen, but not voting is just not one of them. And I think that ultimately it's a very small way that we can get involved in having a voice in our system. Now, I do believe that real activism, is continuous. It doesn't just stop at the ballot box. In fact, voting is just a small, tiny part of what it means to be an activist, about what it means to be truly concerned with oppression and truly concerned with liberation. And yeah, I agree that America is a white supremacy. It's not going to immediately change because of how you vote in the 2018 primaries. However, some of the impacts of our voting could save tens of thousands, if not millions of lives that, lives of marginalized people who are desperately at risk. And we just can't say that there's nothing we can do, because there is something we can do. And there's clearly, obviously, differences between the Democrats and the Republicans. Granted, these are minor differences, But minor differences still have major, major impacts on the lives of those who are living under this oppressive system. And so I hope that you consider some of my words and maybe consider registering in states that you still are able to, or voting if you have already registered. Just a bit of a friendly reminder. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. So ta-ta for now.